Well, welcome to Perspectives Online and on air from WFSU Public Media. I'm Tom Flanigan. This is the fifth in our series of political perspectives programs in the run-up to the August 18th primary election here in Leon County. And this program was recorded on Tuesday, July 21st for playback both on WFSU FM and also on our public media Facebook page on Thursday, July 23rd. And today we're going to talk with the two contenders for public defender in the Second Judicial Circuit, which is comprised of Leon, Gadsden, Wakulla, Jefferson, Liberty, and Franklin counties. We'll meet those folks in a moment, but before we do that, here's how the action will go forward from here. Each candidate will have a few minutes to talk about their background and the unique qualities they believe that they bring to the office of public defender. And then we're going to jump into some issues specific to the office of public defender and its function within the court system. And the ultimate purpose, of course, of this entire exercise is to give you, the voters, sufficient information so that you can make an informed and intelligent decision as to which candidate you are going to support with your vote in the upcoming. So we don't enforce strict time limits on statements. We try to let folks stretch a little bit so they can give you more information, but we also encourage them to be as brief as reasonably possible so we can get to more discussion matters in the course of our chat. So let's meet the candidates for public defender in Florida's Second Judicial Circuit. We did a random drawing prior to the show to get an order of response. And on the basis of that, we'll hear first from the challenger in the race, Jessica Yeary. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being part of the program. Tell us a bit about your background and what you would bring to the job if the voters choose you to be the next public defender in the Second Judicial Circuit.
Thank you. And thank you, Tom, for hosting this forum. It's incredible to be able to talk with you and to talk with voters as they're tuning in. My name is Jessica Yeary, and I have spent the last decade defending people accused of crime in this circuit. I spent the first 9 years of my career at the Public Defender's Office, where I was promoted to positions of leadership throughout my tenure in the office. The last 4 years at the PD's office, I was a division chief, where I was responsible for defending the most serious cases, handling a caseload in the courtroom, while also teaching, encouraging, and motivating the new lawyers in the division. I am board certified in criminal trial law, which means that my level of expertise and knowledge and skill has been rigorously evaluated by the Florida Bar. There are only 14 lawyers in our circuit that are currently practicing that are board certified in criminal trial law, so I'm proud to be one of those members, and it is the standard of representation that I will be setting for all lawyers in the office. I'm proudly serving my second term as the president of the Tallahassee chapter of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. We work within our statewide organization to promote excellence in the field of criminal trial law, both through continuing legal education and camaraderie with each other, also through legislative means and our lobbying arm through the organization. I coach trial team at Florida State University College of Law. I've been a mock coach for students at Pace Center for Girls, and I have committed my career to defending people that need us to defend them in a courtroom. I'm wholeheartedly committed to leading the Public Defender's Office as your attorney in the courtroom, your ally in the neighborhood, and your advocate for justice. We have seen critical conversations that are happening right now in our circuit, and it is time for action and not absence on the part of the Public Defender's Office to be leading the forefront in criminal justice reform, and I'm committed to doing just that.
Thank you very much, Jessica Yeary, the challenger in the race. And we turn now to some introductory comments from the incumbent public defender, who is Andy Thomas. Go ahead, sir, your turn.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the opportunity. I am Andy Thomas. I have been the public defender since 2017. Before that, I served for 12 years as Nancy Daniels' chief assistant. She endorsed me then, she endorses me now. That's the biggest thing I can say on my resume. But I've been in this office since 2000. I've been in public defense for 35 years. I've been a lawyer for 39 years. During that period of time, I've worked for public defenders' offices for about 27 years between Tampa, Quincy, Tallahassee. I have practiced in every county in this circuit, all 6 counties. I have tried capital cases. I have tried major sex battery cases. I've tried kidnapping cases. Not only have I tried them, I have won them. I know how to try a case. When I came into this job after having worked in capital post-conviction with CCRC North, which is Capital Collateral Regional Council, Northern Region, as it is known, I don't need to learn how to try a case. I needed to learn how to administer an office. This is an office of 65 lawyers, 130 employees, over 6 counties, the size of Vermont or New Hampshire. We also do appeals in 32 counties. I have done appeals for several years full time, so I also know how the appellate side of this works. What I needed to learn was how to get money, how to get funding, how to get the best resources for this office. And we have done that. During my tenure, we have brought in somewhere between $350,000 and $500,000 in new dollars. And some of that is for our rank and file employees and not just lawyers. And that's something that I'm very proud of, is that we're being able to do that. Now, with COVID-19, we're going to face budget cuts. And it's going to be very challenging in 2021 and beyond, at least for a couple of years, maybe longer. I believe it takes someone with experience, stability, and somebody who has led the office to get us through that period of time, because these are going to be very challenging times.
Thank you very much, sir. Back to you, Jessica Yeary. And this kind of ties into something that both of you made reference to, but specifically Mr. Thomas just a second ago. Since time immemorial, the various judicial circuits throughout the state of Florida have been, if not complaining, certainly concerned about the level of support, or if you prefer non-support, coming from the Florida legislature. That is where the money originates to support the entire judicial system. And when it comes to the Office of Public Defender, I recall as long as I have been around, that has been a major component of the public defender's job, is across the street over in the legislature to go and make an appearance and to give a rationale as to why the Office of Public Defender should not be shortchanged within a stone's throw, literally, of the Florida Capitol. How would you propose to deal with the Florida legislature if you get the voters' nod to become the next public defender in the circuit? How much time do you expect to spend across Monroe Street over the way?
Sure, so that's an absolutely critical part of the role of the elected public defender. And so working within the Florida Public Defender Association, we will be taking on an active role in lobbying for the support that we need, for ensuring that the work that we do is recognized with the financial support that we need to do our job. But we also know, as you mentioned, Tom, that we are going to have limited resources, and that our work is not the most favorite oftentimes for getting the critical funding that it needs. With that, we have to be resourceful within our office. We have to make sure that even with limited funding, we are providing the very best representation that the people we represent deserve. That comes from partnering with other organizations like Gideon's Army, which is nationally recognized for its training program, for using resources within the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers to utilize training. But other offices statewide, other public defenders' offices, are using in-house training and using their knowledge within the lawyers themselves to provide the resources that we need, to ensure that our lawyers have the motions they need, that they have the skill that they require to fight for our clients. And that comes from instituting those programs within the office. It can't be enough where we just say, well, we don't have the resources, limited, funds are tight, and so we can't roll up our sleeves and get in there and do the work. We know that high caseloads are going to always be an issue that lawyers in the public defender's office face. I know that because I was doing it for the past 10 years. I've been in the courtroom every day with a 10-page docket, but I've been effective in leading other lawyers in the same position by example, and making sure that I'm not asking lawyers to get in there and do a fight that I'm not doing myself. So of course, part of legislative advocacy is going to be some of the work that I'm doing, but I will also be in our own courthouse and representing our neighbors in a courtroom and ensuring that all of the lawyers in the office are doing the same.
Before we go, bounce back to Mr. Thomas to get his take on the same issue as well, you mentioned something earlier, which was you saw your role as public defender as being not just an advocate, but also a change agent, if you will, as we move forward with not only in the age of COVID, but also the entire criminal justice system is likely to see some major, if not modifications, wholesale changes. What were your ideas on that score? How would you change things up within the office in the Second Judicial Circuit?
We have to have a plan for responding to COVID, and there is no plan right now. As the president of the Tallahassee chapter of FACDL, when they shut down visitation, I worked with the sheriff's office to make sure that our clients had outgoing lines so they could touch base with their lawyers even when visitation was done. When we knew that people could not get out of jail and they had limited resources to bond amounts, I worked with the Community Bailout Fund to create a program there that would enable some of our clients to get out through their resources and through their funds. And I've been constantly communicating with all members of the criminal defense bar, not just lawyers in the public defender's office, but also private lawyers, and having the tools that they need to respond to court shutdown. But it is going to take work. We know right now that in county court, these caseloads are up over 250 clients each. And so I have to be the lawyer with my experience that has done just this to get into the office and work with those lawyers in defending clients. Creative ideas, innovative ideas. Hey, if you have a second-degree misdemeanor, that's the lowest level offense that there is. Let's put some pressure on the state attorney's office to get rid of those cases, to dismiss those cases in some way. Let's pull our dockets to know what clients of ours are in on violations of probations that are technical. Let's look at resolving those cases quickly. Let's special set a docket to get people out. We can't just say, well, this is the way we've always done it. This is a national pandemic where our clients are being impacted and their families are being impacted. And so we have to create a plan and get in there and do the work that is going to ensure that our clients are getting representation even if court is shut down.
Andy Thomas, back to you, sir, as again, a chief advocate, as you indicated in your opening remarks, to go over and talk to the legislature and work with other public defenders around Florida to try to get your share of the appropriation from lawmakers. And given COVID and given some of the other considerations that you're likely to be looking at as we change the entire landscape of criminal justice going forward, what do you see your role, if you get another term, as being between your office and the folks over at the Capitol?
It's going to continue. And in fact, before I get to your actual question, everything my opponent just said we're doing already. There's not a new idea that I've heard come out of her mouth today or during this campaign. We met weekly, then daily, with the chief judge, with the chief criminal law judge, with the prosecutor, with the sheriff, with the jail, trying to manage the COVID thing. We reduced the jail population by 21%. It's not enough. We should have the jail down to about 25% of what it was before. No question about it. I've already proposed a meeting in the very near future to try and release more people from the jail because there are more positive cases, which is making it even more difficult for us to do our job. But to answer your question, I have been part of the Public Defender Association for almost 4 years now. I know our lobbyists. We have hired professional lobbyists to talk to the legislators. I know Ramon Alexander. I know all of the legislators that are from our area. I also know legislators from Orlando, Miami, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, people that have power in getting things done in the legislature. And I spend many an hour sitting in front of them and telling them why we need this money, or we need this bill to be killed, or we need this good criminal justice reform to be done. And we have in fact accomplished that, not only as an association and by individual efforts, but by sitting down with the Prosecuting Attorneys Association and saying, look, money matters are not something that we're adverse about. We both need funding. And the typical situation in the Florida legislature is if the state attorneys get money, the public defenders get money. And so there is no reason not to collaborate on those things. The first round of criminal justice reform laws that we got done, which was raising the theft threshold, getting driver's license relief, getting some direct file reform, was done by negotiation in Orlando with 3 prosecutors and 3 defenders. I was one of those defenders, sitting down and negotiating those arrangements. That's how you get things done. You have to spend time, deal with your relationships that you have, deepen them, and work on them every day.
Very good. Since you kind of name checked Jessica Yeary, let's go back to you and talk about what you propose that you perceive as being something other than what is in place right now, what is already in existence in the office that you believe is innovative and something new.
Well, directly in response to COVID, we need to focus first and foremost on our jail population. So our clients that are in custody, we need to make sure that not only are they being physically protected within the pods at the jail, but also that their legal remedies and their constitutional protections are being advocated for. So that means taking a deep dive into all of our cases and seeing which clients can be helped and which clients can be helped quickly. I need to reiterate, these caseloads weren't a problem just because of COVID. They had been an increasing number of cases prior to COVID, a year and a half ago. The jail population was at an all-time high at that point. So it's not been a successful level of representation within the office. On top of that, we've had such attorney turnover that these caseloads do continue to increase because a new lawyer is coming in continuously. So the new ideas that we need is to come together, roll up our sleeves, and do the work. Print a docket and look at all of the cases that we can start saying to the state attorney, hey, listen, these are all low-level offenses. But the bigger issue is if the state attorneys don't agree, which is what oftentimes happens, we need to know how, as lawyers, we can get in there and fight. How we can get releases to the jail so that we know which one of our clients are positive and so that we can file motions for release. Look at what's happening statewide and nationwide. When these motions are being denied, or if judges aren't taking a look, they're filing further litigation after that. We can't shy away from being the lawyers that we need to be. So we have to get in there and file the motions on every single case. We have to get in there and advocate against the state attorney's office in those cases. And if they're not going to agree, we have to make sure that our lawyers know how to work around them in a courtroom and how to make that argument so that our clients are getting the very best representation that they deserve.
We are speaking with the 2 contenders for the office of public defender in the Second Judicial Circuit on this Political Perspectives presentation from WFSU-FM and WFSU Public Media. On the Facebook side of the ledger, Jessica Yeary, who is the challenger, and the incumbent public defender is Andy Thomas, and some dates that you may want to keep in mind for the upcoming primary election in Leon County. Well, if you were not registered to vote, you are out of luck. You are not going to be able to participate in the primary election coming up because the deadline here was Monday of this week. So you didn't register, you're going to have to wait to the general and take that chore into consideration before doing that. However, early voting is set to start on August 3rd. That is going to continue through the 16th. Early voting locations are posted on the Supervisor of Elections website, and primary election day is August 18th. Of course, a lot of vote by mail ballots were out there because of COVID, and those are already being returned to the supervisor's office. As we understand it, a whole bunch, more than half probably of the balloting for the primary is going to be through early balloting. Andy Thomas, let's talk about something that has come out of your office prior. A few folks, not mentioning any name, have been real outspoken advocates of both Veterans Court and Drug Court. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you think that integrates with the office of public defender, and if not making your job easier, certainly perhaps providing more of a benefit to the folks who come before the judges in our criminal justice system?
I'm a big advocate of the therapeutic courts and the specialty courts. And in fact, one of the things I did when I came in is I dedicated an attorney to all the therapeutic courts, and she handles Veterans Court and Drug Court, as well as Mental Health Misdemeanor Court. Veterans Court and Drug Court have both been expanded legislatively since I've been in office, which means more people qualify. Judge Akins runs the Veterans Court. He is a veteran himself. It has a very high success rate. The graduations, which I attend, typically are somewhere around 85 to 95% success rate. And it hasn't been around long enough for us to look at a 5-year recidivism rate. What we have seen for 2 to 3 years is that the recidivism rate is much, much lower than traditional criminal justice. Drug court is a wonderful program, particularly the way we do it in the Second Circuit, because you don't have to plead to anything and then go back and seal and expunge and do all of that business. And you're not, if you fail drug court, you're not automatically on probation or taking another sanction. So our people do not have to enter pleas when they enter into the deferred prosecution drug court program. And if they successfully do that, then the seal and expunge of the arrest is done automatically at the end of the process. So not only did they get counseling, did they get an education about drugs and their dangers, but they walk out with a clean slate and they can start their lives over without having any type of blemish on their record. So I'm a big advocate of both of them. My predecessor, Nancy Daniels, did drug court. That was her sole litigation while she was in office, but she had a great love for the program and it has continued on.
Very good. Jessica Yeary, on the same question here, your thoughts on those specialty courts, and if elected and you are a supporter, what would you do to expand their purview?
So our specialty courts are incredibly positive programs, and I have been volunteering with Veterans Court through the Veterans Legal Clinic and through Veterans Stand Down program that happens every year. It's so amazing to see the impact that these support and alternative sanctions have on the people that we represent and their families. There's been a lot of talk for other specialty courts like human trafficking victims or juvenile direct files, kids that have been charged, juvenile offenders, making that a specialty court and working to ensure that alternative sanctions are in place and that when people come into the court system, they leave better for it and with the record that continues to remain clean so that their future is not impacted by that one position or by that one choice. As a trial lawyer in the trenches, we have the ability to move those courts over or to move those cases over to drug court. And so we have to continue to train and teach our lawyers how to get cases into the specialty courts if the state attorney or the prosecutors don't agree. And I routinely did that in my trial practice, also advocating for clients to get into specialty courts. So they are positive, they have impactful, they make impactful differences for our clients, and I would wholeheartedly support them too.
As long as we're in your neck of the woods here, as adversarial as our system is, and certainly that is the way it's set up and how it operates, still personal relationships play a big role in any kind of human endeavor, including the criminal justice system. And as you and Mr. Thomas had also intimated, sometimes you got to cut a deal. You got to do something with the folks over in the prosecutor's office. So as far as your personal relationship with our current state attorney, Jack Campbell, and his minions over there, what's your relationship with? I mean, can you go strolling over there and they say, "Hey, Jess, how's it going?" Or you get a little bit less pleasant greeting when you head down the hall?
Sure, I think it depends on the prosecutor and it depends on the case. But I have tried cases against Jack Campbell and I have tried cases against the prosecutors there in the office. We are adversaries. There's a lot that we're going to agree on, but there's also a lot that we're not going to agree on. And we have to keep it professional, but we also have to be skilled advocates. And what we're running into now as practicing lawyers is we're sending over plea offers or we're trying to resolve cases and the prosecutors aren't agreeing. So when your prosecutor doesn't agree to your plea negotiation, what is the next step? And we can't continue to just, a 97% plea out rate or an office that is a plea meal is not the best representation of our clients. It's not about, talking a client out of a deal if it's in their best interest. Of course, sometimes plea negotiations are in our client's best interest, but that has to come after a thorough review of the evidence, a thorough review of the discovery, truly looking through a case and challenging any constitutional issues that we see, any Fourth Amendment violations that we do, setting up depositions and looking through our own investigation and our own defense case. So I have a professional relationship with the prosecutors. There's times that we work out cases, but there are also times where we are going toe for toe in a courtroom, and we need to make sure that our clients are getting the same level of representation that they would if they had a private lawyer or if they hired a different lawyer. And that comes from not being shy about being in a courtroom and from cross-examining witnesses, from giving closing arguments, and from being persuasive and compassionate in the courtroom, so that our clients know we're there defending them, whether it's a plea or whether it's a trial.
Andy Thomas, you and Jack Campbell and those folks on at least terms that can allow you to do that type of negotiation, hardball or softball as required?
I think my relationship with Mr. Campbell is one of uneasy truce most of the time. We've decided not to argue about what we don't have to argue about, which means that we can talk about mutually beneficial issues, procedural issues, administrative issues, scheduling issues. I believe Mr. Campbell has been very flexible in trying to handle the COVID situation through those discussions. But when it comes to litigation, there is a resistance down the hall to reasonableness and to proposals that we bring to them. But I want to make this clear, 97% disposition rate is the lowest plea rate in the state because we have the highest trial rate in the state. So to make it sound like we're just pleading everybody out, which is completely erroneous, because almost 15.5% of the cases filed by the state attorney's office result in not guilty verdicts, dismissals, null process drops, or deferred prosecutions that go into the specialty courts. So the actual rate of guilty disposition is around 84.5%. That's very low for any state attorney's office. And that reflects, if you go to trial on a capital sex battery and it comes back as a battery, or you go to trial on a first-degree murder and it comes back a manslaughter, those count as convictions in the state attorney statistics. So the bottom line is we are litigating, and we're litigating very hard all the time. We're also very skilled with our investigators and our social workers and our mental health people in putting together packages that convince prosecutors to give somebody a disposition other than prison or jail.
If I can ask you, sir, what's the current churn rate when it comes to the attorneys who work in your office? A perennial problem for any public defender's office is trying to hang on to good people. They can, make a lot more in private practice or run down the hall and maybe make a few more dollars as a prosecutor.
We have traditionally in the Second Circuit had one of the lowest turnover rates in the state. We did in the last few years. I think the turnover rate has been higher recently. Part of that is because of this campaign. Part of that is because of what's going on in this particular election. And I do believe the fact that we got minimum salaries of $50,000 a year for attorneys to start will help us flatten that curve a little bit and get back down to less turnover rates. We do not have any turnover rates really in our investigators and our support staff. It's only been among the attorneys, and that's traditional. When the executive branches get their money, somewhere around summer, we usually lose a couple of lawyers, but it's just something that's perpetual. I mean, ask Carlos Martinez in Miami, he has to replace something like 35 every other month.
Which is tough in any organization. Jessica Yeary, any idea you have to keep good folks on staff?
Sure. So that comes from the leadership of the office, and that comes from the environment and the culture in the office. I am proud to say that I have the support of the lawyers that I have trained, of certified legal interns that I have supported, of the lawyers that have come through the office and still call me chief and still call me every day asking questions about their cases. So to retain lawyers and to keep them, it has to be an office where they want to stay. I can assure you that lawyers don't become public defenders because they think they're going to be rich. They become public defenders because they care about the work and they care about the people that they represent. And they come in wanting to change the world, and they get put out after crippling caseloads and an administration and a leadership that does not support them. So we will change the culture of the office. When you look at Gideon's Army, as I mentioned earlier, which is a nationally recognized training program, they work on just that, which is retention. So when you invest and support the people that work for you, not just the lawyers, but also support staff, then they are going to stay because they want to remain on the team. I wholeheartedly believe that comes from setting the example and not asking lawyers to get down there and do work that you're not doing yourself. The elected public defender should be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. So people are not leaving because of anything of burnout or not loving the work that they do. Where they're going is other offices that are doing the same type of work because they care about the mission. So we will be an office that is supportive, inclusive, and motivated together to make the critical criminal justice reform that is desperately needed right now.
Andy Thomas, we have probably a sea change that is going to come up. COVID, yes or no? Following what's been going on in the Florida legislature and indeed other legislatures around the country over the past several years, the pressure to do such things as to decriminalize or marginalize low-level nonviolent drug offenses, another set of wholesale changes to the criminal justice system as far as changing statutes, as we have discovered that putting someone for a low-level crime away for 15 or 20 years may not be in the best interest, certainly of taxpayers and the legislatures who are trying to find money to make those sorts of things happen. How do you see the Office of Public Defender, your office that you now occupy and that Ms. Yeary hopes to occupy, changing over the next 5 to 10 years? A little crystal ball stuff here, please.
Well, if this seismic shift in this is a huge moment, I believe, in our society right now for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that COVID is going to bring to this economy is a huge crash in revenues. And if there was ever a better time to be arguing Senator Brandis's criminal justice reforms and right on crimes criminal justice reforms about how we save money and enhance and help lives and promote public safety, it is now. Because you may have, even with a conservative Republican-dominated legislature, receptive ears to, if we cut the prison population, which is almost 100,000, if we cut it like Texas and Oklahoma and get it down to roughly half or a third of what it is right now, how many billions of dollars are you saving? Okay, not only that, the outcomes are better. So I believe that it depends on how receptive the legislature is to our lobbying. But it's not just us, it's the ACLU, it's the Southern Poverty Law Center. There are a number of partners that we work with as the Public Defender Association and our lobbyists to try and push forth good bills. There's probably 50 bills over there in the legislature right now that have been drafted and been proposed for years that don't get any play because it's not politically expedient or it doesn't appeal to the individual legislator. Now that we're in this economic crisis, I foresee that there will be some reforms, and I think we may push it a little faster because right now we're a disgrace. We are the slowest reforming state in the South. We can look at Georgia and Texas and South Carolina and Kentucky and Tennessee and places like that and say they're way ahead of us, not only in saving money, but turning around lives, using community-based programs to actually help people rather than just incarcerate them. And so I think we have a great opportunity. We're going to have to double down on it.
Jessica, your thoughts on along the same line there, please.
We absolutely have an opportunity before us now, and we need to seize that opportunity as lawyers that are advocates for justice. There are critical conversations that are happening in our neighborhoods right now, not about the economy, but about how people are interacting with law enforcement, how their cases are resolving in the courtroom, and how people are looking at the criminal justice system as a whole. So we have to seize an opportunity by being present advocates who are arguing the issues and being the voice of those who are not being heard. So, I get more calls and questions now about, is it true that this happens? Or, is it true that people go to jail for this? Or why are people sitting in jail when they haven't had their day in court yet? That is what we need to be pushing forward. Those are the conversations that we need to be having as an active role from the public defender. The public defender's office represents the majority of people that are arrested and accused in this circuit. So we have the ability to make the most change, but that comes from being present and from being involved not only in these conversations, but in the courtroom and in our neighborhoods, and letting people know that we are going to be side by side with them in this fight for criminal justice reform. Because, the direct filed child that I'm representing in adult court isn't concerned about the legislature or the economy. They and their family are concerned about, am I going to have a lawyer who's going to fight for me, or am I going to spend the rest of my life in prison on a bad law? So we need to make sure that we are skilled lawyers who are in there fighting for our clients at every turn and being their voice that is echoed throughout our communities and our neighborhoods by being advocates for justice.
The public defender in the Second Judicial Circuit of Florida, which includes the capital county and 5 surrounding counties. The 2 contenders, Jessica Yeary, who we just heard from, the incumbent, Andy Thomas. And this is a special political perspectives from WFSU Public Media, always available online, not only on our WFSU.org website, but also on our WFSU Public Media Facebook page. We try to have the most recent program up on both places just as soon as we can after it airs on the radio, so you can hear, and in the case of Facebook, actually see the program whenever you want. Andy Thomas, another sea change that is probably on the way as we talk about what the future of the criminal justice system may look like in the wake of the ascendancy of Black Lives Matter and so forth, the now dawning understanding in some rather unusual places that not everybody who is accused of a crime may have gotten previously a fair shake out of the system. And in fact, there are societal and cultural and educational and other factors that impinge on a person's makeup that can predispose them to be in these situations. How do you, as a public defender, deal with that when, justice is supposed to be blind and so forth, but how do you raise that level of awareness in your office and, in fact, the entire Leon County Courthouse? How do you do that?
Well, this is multidimensional. And as I was explaining the other day to someone, it starts with policing. That's where this whole system begins, is who do we target? Are we profiling? Are we rousting African Americans on the South Side in a disproportionate way? Of course we are, and we have for a long time. And you can say you can file motions to suppress until you go dizzy, but they won't be granted most of the time because the laws are bad. That's why you have to be working across the street in the legislature, is to try to get those laws changed, okay? But the first conversation that needs to take place is with Chief Rebel, and it's already taken place with Sheriff McNeil, as far as from my office, about spider squads and cop squads and all these over-aggressive policing methods. Also, discretion in arrest. Law enforcement used to have much more discretion, or at least they exercised more discretion than they do these days. So that's the first step. Try to get the policing to back off. Quit making people mad by crawling in their cars, by bringing dogs all the time for a cracked tail light. Stop that stuff. That's number one. Number two, try to nudge the prosecutor's office in the direction to not just filing everything that the police bring them. Use more discretion in deciding whether or not this is a case that should really be taken seriously, or should be pushed to the wall, okay? Number three, when it gets to us, when we start working on these cases, which is within 24 hours of arrest, what I've tried to teach my lawyers and tried to instill in them is to use the social services, the mental health services, the investigators, the team concept, so that you can develop a mitigation package. If you have a client who's in fact guilty and in fact cannot go to trial and somehow escape the consequences of what happened here, then let's at least explain to the prosecutors and the judges who our clients are. If they have gone through adverse childhood experiences, if they were abused as children, if they have been in a food challenged, income challenged environment their entire lives, if they have been exposed to violence, if they have learning disabilities, all of these things should be detected, brought to the forefront, and argued in mitigation to try and help these people rather than just punish them. And so it's a multidimensional matter.
Yes, a big question for sure. And Jessica Yeary, when you look at these sorts of things, can you take that holistic approach, or how do you approach that? So from the time of arrest to the time of sentencing, you, as a public defender, have a lot more influence and impact in what happens.
Sure. So, you know, the time of having conversation and talking with prosecutors, we've seen that it's not working. And when we look back at this time, you know, we are going to look back like we do at the civil rights movement. And the changes that were made were done by lawyers in the courtroom arguing those points. We can't say, well, I'm not going to file a motion to suppress because I'm probably going to lose anyways. We should be challenging law enforcement every step of the way. We're past the time for conversations and talk. We are in the time right now where we need the skill and the work of lawyers to get in there and fight for their clients. When you see a pretextual stop, when you see a violation of the Fourth Amendment, when we know that our clients are being targeted by police, you can't pick up the phone and ask them to stop. You file the motions. And if we file 100 motions and we only win one, then that is one person that our litigation has impacted and a change in the law that we will start to see. What is happening right now with the laws as they're continuing to be decided is not favorable for defendants and is not favorable for the people we represent. So we have to challenge that with our skill in a courtroom. Of course, if we are going to resolve a case with a plea negotiation, then we want to set up our client for success. We want to make sure that they have support. And I have been working with our community partners this entire time to see the work that they're doing on the level, on the ground level, and making sure that we're setting up clients for success in that way. But our first response to when a client is arrested shouldn't be, okay, how do we plead this out? It should be reviewing the case as lawyers and making sure that we are challenging the evidence, challenging any law enforcement issues that we see, and being the skilled lawyers that are out there fighting, because we are way past the time of calling people and asking for conversation, because that's where we've ended up. So we need to be challenging with our legal skills in a courtroom every single day and for every single client.
Folks, we have less than 10 minutes left in our get together here on our political perspectives as we speak with the two contenders for the Public Defender's Office of the Second Judicial Circuit. I'll tell you, why don't we do this? Let's give both of you folks an opportunity to kind of make a summation. We're back in the courtroom again, even though, let's face it, there sure aren't too many encounters in the courtroom nowadays with the strictures that we have in place because of the pandemic. But going back to our original order of response, as the challenger, Jessica Yeary, if you can make in less than 5 minutes your best case for why you should be the next public defender, and your time starts now.
Thank you. Again, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jessica Yeary, and I have dedicated my career to defending people accused of crime in our circuit. I have only been a criminal defense attorney. I've never been a prosecutor. I've never done anything else. I have always been a lawyer championing the causes of my clients. I spent the first 9 years at the Public Defender's Office, and that is what has taught me what we need to do in the office to better serve our clients and to ensure that the type of defense you get doesn't depend on the amount of money that you have. The way I will do that is by being your attorney in the courtroom. I will, unlike my opposition, continue to defend clients and carry a caseload. And when we know that caseloads are skyrocketing, I will be the first one in there helping and not sending it to a couple weeks down the road. On top of that, I will set a level for representation that is board certification. And I will encourage and support our lawyers through a formal training program within the office, like so many other public defenders' offices throughout Florida have, to ensure that our lawyers have the skills and the tools that they need to fight in the courtroom for our clients. So I will be your attorney in the courtroom defending clients and carrying a caseload. Second, I will be your ally in the neighborhood. I will be in our communities talking with our neighbors to see what issues matter the most, how they are affecting them, and how we can work together to make change. The first time that you meet your public defender shouldn't be when you walk into the courtroom for the first time. And so I will continue to create those relationships so that we know how to work together to make the critical criminal justice reform that is so desperately needed. But most importantly, I will be your advocate for justice. There are critical conversations that are happening right now in our backyard about policing, about injustice, about inequality in our own court system. And the critical voice that is missing is that of the public defender's office. As I said, we represent the majority of people that are accused. So we have to be out there arguing for them and defending them and being present for every conversation that's happening so that it's not just law enforcement making the decisions, but the criminal defense lawyers. I've been doing that as a part of the Tallahassee chapter of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, both within our COVID workshop and in our community, and I'll continue to do that as your public defender. Now is the time for action and not absence. And I wholeheartedly look forward to getting back into the office and leading as I did with lawyers that are just as committed and just as compassionate to making a difference for the people that we represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica Yeary. And Andy Thomas, you have now the perhaps unenviable task of telling folks why you believe you should keep the job that you have held since 2017. It's all yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Flanigan. Thank you for having me again. I am Andy Thomas. I am the public defender. I'm honored to serve in that capacity. I believe our record speaks for itself. I believe if you have friends who are judges, you have friends who are advocates in the courtroom, ask them how we're doing. Don't listen to rhetoric. Listen to references. Talk to people about what we do and what we have done. When I came into this office, I interviewed every employee, asked them what they most needed, and they said, we most need more money. We like the environment just fine. We need more money. I've gone and gotten that money. I have worked very hard to do that. I looked around, thought we needed implicit bias and diversity training. So I sent all of my employees to Judge Aiken's diversity training, trying to bring us together and make us closer in many ways. It took 6 months to do that. I rewrote the employee manual, trying to get it to where it's very clear that we have zero tolerance for discrimination and any type of harassment in this office, and a number of other things. I put together a social services directory so that our attorneys and our investigators could consult an easy intranet site and get the services that our clients need. When we talk about networking with stakeholders in the community, that's what our social services division and I do weekly, if not daily, is that we network with the providers. In fact, we've been named a champion in recovery-oriented systems of care by the Department of Children and Families and Big Bend community-based care. And that is because we have prototypical social services in this office. We help people. I had a voter the other day I was talking to, and he says, yeah, you're running a drug rehab center up there, not just a law firm. Well, that is what we want to be known for. We want to be known for connecting people with services. Of course, we don't provide all those services. What we do is we connect them to those services. I am proud of that record. I'm proud of the #1 trial rate in the state for 2018-19. I'm proud of one of the best disposition rates, non-guilty disposition rates in the state. So it's easy to criticize from the outside. It's a hard job from the inside. and I think we've done a darn good job. We've only had 3.5 years to put our agenda and our ideas into place. I think we deserve another term to complete the job.
Thank you very much, Andy Thomas, and thank you, Jessica Yeary, the two contenders for the Public Defender's Office in the Second Judicial Circuit. And thank you, folks, for tuning in on the radio and also Facebook Live to be a part of this Political Perspectives, which is produced by WFSU Public Media in Tallahassee. We extend our gratitude to Taylor Cox, Paul Dam, Amy Diaz de la Villegas, Tricia Moynihan, and Lydell Rawls. Our Zoom facilitator and executive producer is Kim Kelling, and I'm Tom Flanigan. In the weeks to come, we're going to be talking with the candidates for 2 circuit judge races in the Second Judicial Circuit. As long as we're hanging out at the courthouse, we'll be going into those 2 races and talking to the contenders therein, and we will be rounding out our political perspectives with the Leon County School Board Seat 4 contest. We invite you to join us both on air and online from WFSU Public Media. Take care.